Hi guys, as always excuse the massive bags under my eyes, the general state of me. That is just, yeah, send mum life, no time for yourself. Um, so yeah, the point that we're at in our EHCP journey now. So I did a parental request, I think it was the beginning of January. Then we obviously had to gather the additional evidence with school, did all of that. The 18th of February, so literally right before half term, I got the refusal letter, which I was completely 50-50 on whether it would go through. There's absolutely no question that the level of need is there. That's never been in doubt. I don't understand it because I did a parental request, so to me, schools' opinions shouldn't matter so much. It should be a slightly different process. It's not. Don't get me wrong, it is not. But it should be slightly different if you're doing it as parental. For a lot of people, once they go through the HCP process, they choose a different school, or schools say that they can't meet the child's needs and they go to a special school, or a school with better provision for their child. So for the decisions to be based on school have not done enough to support this child, or school haven't done XYZ, to me, like, it should not be allowed, but it is. So yeah, yesterday I had my mediation information call, which trying to get it all right. So it's a legal requirement now that even if you want to, I didn't really realise. I thought in most things you go mediation, then you go tribunal. You have the option to skip mediation and go straight to tribunal. Tribunals are taking 6 months at least. So to get this decision overturned, it would literally be nothing for 6 months, and then in 6 months' time, I'd have a 95% chance that it would be overturned just on paper. So in 6 months' time, a judge would look at the paperwork from myself, from school, from the LA, and would, fingers crossed, overturn the decision. But then you factor in it should be 16 weeks, but let's say like 20-week time for the actual process in terms of the assessments, the drafts, blah, 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 before it gets put in place. We'd be looking at a year. We don't have a year. So I would hope that mediation will be enough to get it overturned. Mediation, we're looking at about a 6-week wait. It will be myself and school convincing the LA, essentially. There will be a mediator in the room. So there is something in my, first of all, in the refusal letter, they got his name wrong, which is a bit of a joke. So I instantly replied and said, like, no one's proofread this. Can you get that changed, or any other errors changed? I knew that the statement they had put in there wasn't true, essentially. Like, they're not allowed to say it. No, I knew that it wasn't. Yeah, I knew it wasn't true, and I knew they're not supposed to say it. I didn't realise they were actually breaking the law by saying it. So they've put a statement in his EHC assessment refusal, which says that his academic level is not low enough. You know, that old-fashioned, well, they used to say, oh, if they're not 2-3 years behind, they're not going to get it. Because school have put these working towards year one, which essentially is working at reception level. That's 2 years behind anyway. There is an actual statement in his refusal letter which says that he's not working at a level which would trigger an assessment, which is illegal. Apparently, the mediator, the lady on the phone yesterday, she was reading. She went, "Oh, ooh, no, Worcestershire definitely cannot say that." She said, if it comes to it, she said either the mediator will instantly say, "You can't say that," or "You shouldn't have said that," or I can say, sorry, what? There is no, I don't know what the word is. There is no, like, bottom level. There is no 2 years behind. None of that. That doesn't matter. You cannot say that. So yeah, they've got a legal statement in there. It also refers to his learning needs assessment, which was almost a year ago now. It was done at his old school. So yeah, it's graduated response. They like to chuck that around, don't they? So I would say no matter what school did, if school were perfect, without a higher level of support that he would get from the HCP, they would never be able to fully meet his needs. Particularly at the moment, he's in a year 1-2 class, so he's in year 2. He hates it. He absolutely hates it. But he spends a lot of time with year 1. He works with year 1. He works with the teaching assistant. He doesn't have his own support or anything else. In September, in a year 3-4 class, where he's the youngest anyway, and academically 2 years behind the youngest, that's going to be impossible without the right support in place, which is why I can't wait that 6 months for tribunal. I can't wait for that process then. So yeah, so that's the learning needs. We're going to have to absolutely rip apart, look through what school are already doing, what they're not doing, anything that they're not doing, why they're not doing it. She said they absolutely cannot say that it's down to budget, so they can't say, oh well, he hasn't got sensory breaks, blah blah blah, because he hasn't got one-to-one support. But that's their own, that's on their back. School should be putting that in place regardless of whether he's got that HCP or not. So yeah, and if there are things that we've tried doesn't work, that all needs to be documented so that in mediation we can pull it all apart and say, well, yes, he has had this, he has had that, but he hasn't had this, or he's had that but it's not worked, so we've took it back out, and that kind of thing. Also funding, which she said funding is a bit of a grey area. She said they can't, it'll be Worcestershire's policy to say where's his £6,000 gone, what funding have they already spent on him, what have they already done. It's not a legal requirement for an assessment that they've done that. So yeah, that's a bit of a, we have to just fight Worcestershire on it. It's not a, she said it's not going to be an easy one in the slightest. I think she would have maybe lent towards me just going to tribunal, but worst comes to worst, it's 6 weeks till mediation fails, that it goes forward. I'm hoping on the fact that just they've put that illegal and they've used a statement which isn't allowed. I'm hoping just on that will swing it. She said that the person the LA sent has to be quite senior to mediation, because they have to make a decision on the spot. They're not allowed to obviously go away, think about it, anything else. They need to on the spot say, yes, we uphold our decision, or we'll overturn the decision. It's not obviously on the mediator. The mediator is there to be impartial, which they're not, because they are really on the side of they should be impartial, but obviously they are really on the side of the parents. They're trying to fight for you. But yeah, it's down to the LA to overturn the decision, whereas obviously at tribunal it's taken out of their hands. So yeah, worst comes to worst, it'll be 6 weeks till mediation, and then I'm just adding 6 weeks onto my tribunal time, because then I'd have to then push it onto tribunal. So it's, yeah, by no means an easy decision. I'm hoping I've got school on board and that we'll go to mediation. She sent me the link to do, and I could have last night just instantly kicked on mediation, but I said I want the school to obviously be without school's evidence, etc., for mediation, that it'll fail. So I need school to be on board with it, otherwise we may as well just go straight to tribunal. It's funny how like replies slow down. Like when it was before EHCP and it was normal emails, I would always get a reply the same day. Even if it was 10 o'clock at the evening, I would get a reply. Now that it's EHCP things and they're harder questions and they're questions they don't necessarily want to answer, all of a sudden it's maybe 24 hours, maybe, or I'll give you a call at some point. Like, it's so frustrating how it's changed. Yeah, so she also said she was quite shocked that he's not been seen by CCN recently, which is complex communications autism team. So they're well, she said in her opinion more useful than at this point, where it is mainly autism, mainly, obviously there's a lot of things from his learning needs, but in terms of his autism, she said CCN would be more useful than just a general, I think, I mean, don't quote me on any of this because I've not done any of this before, but I think in an EHC actual like needs assessment they would send an educational psychologist, but they wouldn't, if they're not already involved, they would not speak to CCN. So because he's not been seen by CCN for like 2 years, they would not be called upon if they weren't already involved. So that was one thing I said to school last night, like CCN need to come back in like right now. Because yeah, if we haven't already got a report from them or he hasn't already been seen by them, then I wouldn't be able to use them, and that would be a disaster in terms of, because obviously I was expecting her to be completely different because she's the mediator, but she's previously worked for Sendias and she's previously been a Senko and a teacher, so yeah, she's very much like on the parent side, not as impartial as you'd expect a mediator to be. She said you've got to remember, like, it's not as simple as just getting that first decision overturned. Getting an assessment doesn't necessarily mean you get a plan, and getting a plan doesn't necessarily mean that it truly reflects your child. So you've got to think of the bigger picture in terms of who's going to be involved, what's going to happen once it's overturned, of what actual evidence would get used in terms of writing the plan and that kind of thing, because you don't want there to be going back to mediation because you're not happy with the plan or you're not happy with who's been involved, who hasn't, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's very, very stressful. I mean, it was an hour on the phone And it was her one appointment. I didn't want to be like, oh no, I can't make that appointment, because then it could have been like however long until I got another one. So I was like, yeah, that date and time is fine. But it was actually when Jaden was in his conductive education appointment, so I'd have to like, I'd already picked him up from school, got to Ledbury. Ella was sat in the car on the iPad. He was in his conductive education. He got walked out to the car halfway through, so he was like trying to tell me about how like another child had put his teddy in their mouth, and this, that, and the other. And I was having to be like, Jade, please, just for like, and it was like another like half an hour. So yeah, it was a full hour. It was exhausting. I had like the worst headache I've had in so long after it, because it was just so like I had to take everything in. I had to write all the notes, everything else. But she was so good. I was really surprised. I was expecting it just to be this is the legal side of it. Do you want to do it? Do you not? Because basically the way that it works, if you want to skip mediation, which is obviously a lot of people do, a lot of people just say, well, we'll just go straight to tribunal. If you don't want to do face-to-face, well, it's not face-to-face, it's on Zoom or Teams or one of those kind of things. If you want to go straight to tribunal, it's all paper. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to stand in court. Because obviously when I went to my DLA tribunal, that was a completely different thing. I got like torn to pieces. I won it, but I got torn to pieces in court. Whereas with this tribunal, it is literally you send paperwork, LA send paperwork, school send paperwork. If you you can request like to speak to the judge, I guess that, yeah, it'd be judge when it was tribunal. You can request to speak to the judge, but that's taken as a special circumstance, and it adds like X amount of time onto the time scale and blah blah blah. But in general, it's the easier option, I guess, because you just send your paperwork off and you hope and pray that it gets overturned, and that's that. So yeah, I was expecting the call more to just be like, this is the process, blah blah blah. If you want to do that option, you go to tribunal, then you have to get a certificate from the mediators to say that yes, you've been had all the processes explained to you, the pros and cons, blah blah blah, and then you get a certificate to say that you can go straight to tribunal. That's something that I think she said it came in like 2014 or something, in the like Families and Children and Families whatever Act. She did quote like all the different bits of law involved. So yeah, it is a very serious process. I think mediation is the one for me. I hope that's what we're gonna. Well, providing that school agree with the things that I need them to agree with, that will be the option. At the minute, I'm just like, I'd just take them out of school. I'll just have them at home. But no, we continue to fight because that's what we have to do. There are things I don't know whether I've mentioned. I don't think I have done a video, and I don't even know how long. There are certain things with school that I've not been happy with recently, where like staffing at the moment is just, I don't know what's going on there. Main TA is leaving this week. They now send me the timetable at the start of the week, and it's like, it's names I've never even heard of. There's like 2 or 3 different, like each day it's like the teacher's not in the classroom, but there's the headmaster and a random TA that I've never heard of, or a student TA, or this or that, and I'm just like, when you've got, I think there's 3 if not 4. There's certainly 3 children in the class with an autism diagnosis, possibly 4, possibly more, possibly Ella. Like there is a high need in that class. It's a class of 22, so to have like 4 children with autism, and then obviously there's going to be other learning needs, additional needs, whatever else in the classroom. It's a high class of need. To not have a specialist TA in there at all, to not have a consistent TA in there at all, isn't good enough. They refer to, when Jane struggles with change, they say like those kind of changes where it's somebody who's not used to and that kind of thing. They call it attention-seeking behaviour. So if he says like he's got stomachache, he's got a headache, he's like trying to talk to them because that's like obviously the way he distracts himself, they refer to those as attention-seeking behaviours. I'm like, no, that's anxiety, that's severe anxiety. He physically feels. I can remember it when I was a child. I didn't know I had anxiety. I knew I had a headache and I had stomachache. And when the teachers would say to me, there's nothing wrong with you, or tell us what's really wrong, it's not what you're saying it is, I thought they were crazy because I physically felt that pain. Like Jaden this morning was saying he had stomachache. And I was rushing him off to school, but I try and say to him, it's just because you're worrying, once you calm down, you'll be okay. Whereas school say, what do you want me to do about it? There's nothing wrong with you. No, bare minimum, he needs a sensory break. He needs to be able to leave the room, calm down, or, he needs to be properly introduced to the people that he's with, if it's different TAs and that kind of thing. So yeah, there are a few things. His behaviour is a lot worse than it has ever been before. So I'm trying to sort of have that making good decisions, because he's very much a people pleaser. He's very much wants to be liked and all that kind of thing, so he's very easily led. So whereas previously it's always been the teachers that he's wanted to please, and he's always kind of tried his very best for the teachers. Now sometimes if there's a child that's doing things they shouldn't be doing, he quite easily follows and kind of does what that child's doing. So I have to have that conversation of like, you stop and think, should I be doing that, should I not, should I be joining in, because when he gets in trouble he gets so distressed. Where he's had the headmaster as a teacher a few times and he's been told off by him, he ends up under the table sobbing because he doesn't know how to deal with it. So yeah, it's a difficult balance of kind of, you don't want to take him away from the people that he considers to be friends, but at the same time his behaviour, and not even just his behaviour, it's that, are they really your friend if they punch you, kick you and everything else? It's a difficult balance at the minute to kind of make sure that he's happy, make sure that his needs are met, and make sure the school are kind of understanding his needs in some ways. But yeah, I'll give an update once I have actually spoken or heard back from school and confirmed whether I'm going to do mediation or just wait for tribunal, which I don't want to just wait for tribunal, but if school aren't going to give the correct kind of, not correct kind of, essentially school need to now buckle down and get this stuff sorted, and if they can't, or if they won't, then there's no point doing mediation, because just on my own evidence it wouldn't get overturned. So yeah, I'm stuck in the middle as usual between kind of like what he needs and what school actually provide and that kind of thing. She did give me a provision map, which she said map, I was expecting it to be like dotted around the bit. I don't know why. It's literally like almost like a spending, like an accounts kind of form. It's almost like that, and it's like you break down what support they get. So say like he does have an hour a day with a TA. I don't think he does, but say he had an hour of like working on specific things that he needs to work on, then they would literally fund in what that TA's pay rate for the hour is, how many weeks across the year he has that, and then to show like where his funding actually goes. So he maybe has like half an hour in the morning with the TA to settle him and that kind of thing, or transitions. So then they can literally put like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, but they can still work out over the year that that's where his bare minimum £6,000, if not more, has been spent. So I have sent them a copy of that to fill in. That should be quite interesting. I said, should it be what they actually spend now or what they project to spend, because they may well have to change, or the things that they need to put in. Like they put in in the end, they put in the family conversation, which is like the main bulk evidence for the assessment from like the parents' point of view, the child's point of view, and the teachers. She put in there that he needs one-to-one during transitions and through the morning, and this, that, the other. Well, they can put that in. You don't need any HCP, so like they should be putting that in place now. So yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done that isn't being done, and at the minute we're skating by September. He will not cope in that class without a much higher level of support, and a specialist support. That's the most important thing. Mainstream teachers, mainstream TAs, they could be the best in the world, but if they don't have that autism speciality or understanding or whatever else, then with the best intentions, they're not going to meet his needs. So he needs the consistent, somebody that's the same, not say the same every single day, but maybe two, so that like obviously if one's away, then the other's there. But this kind of like different people constantly, and it not being, if it was literally on a Wednesday morning is this person, but where it's just like, oh, someone's covering this, they're covering that, because it's such a small school, they just switch staff around here, there and everywhere. When you have autistic children, that's just not okay, you just can't do it. But yeah, that's the end of that rant. We will get there. It's never ending, because obviously once you get what you think you need, then all of a sudden his needs change, or this changes, that changes. There's constant like updates of things that needed, but this is the goal for now, is just to get the HCP.